Hey, how's everyone doing today? So, I just got out of a one-on-one meeting with my manager here at work, and all I was thinking about as that meeting ended was the dichotomy between who I think I am, who I am with my family, and dichotomy implies two, but the difference between who I am in my personal life and who I am in my professional life. That's a good way to phrase it. Um, Basically, you are the person you are when you're alone. You are this confident, amazing person who has an infinite depth of interests and hobbies and thoughts and all these different things while you're by yourself. But when you're in public, sometimes it's very hard to express that version of yourself with others, right? You might struggle to stand up for yourself. You might struggle with expressing your needs, your desires, your wants. You might struggle with speaking up for yourself when the time comes. And that dichotomy is such a fascinating one to me because you regularly express your opinion. You regularly express who you are and what you want. But when confronted with some kind of authority in your life, whether it's your boss or your manager, or maybe you have to make a phone call to dispute some charge on your bill, whatever the bill is, right? It can be nerve wracking. It can make you nervous to actually call and do that thing. It can be really nerve wracking to negotiate a salary in a job interview, right? It can be really nerve wracking to stand up for yourself in a specific scenario. And that that dichotomy fascinates me right now. A lot of it, a lot of the confidence that you can exude, I think, comes from knowing that you'll be just fine if said negotiation goes badly, if you can't stand up for yourself, if the safety net that you imagine is there isn't actually there. I think a lot of time when you're alone, you think, this is how I would react to said situation, or this is how I would communicate my desires in whatever way. When I'm talking with my wife, right? I am the most Chad male you might ever imagine, right? Think about any meme you want, There's like the virgin silly person and the Chad awesome person, right? Whatever meme you're imagining, when I'm talking with my wife, I feel like that Chad version of it. I feel like the most confident, the most self assured, the most certain person ever when I'm talking to her. When I'm talking to a stranger, sometimes I feel like I can't quite express myself in the same way, right? Maybe you experience the same thing. Maybe you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Where you're talking with someone from work, or you're talking with someone setting up a phone plan. I don't know the specifics, but it's a weird dichotomy. As I'm saying, it's it's a strange disconnect between who you are, who you really express yourself as, and who you are in public, right? So what I'm talking about is that safety net that you provide yourself helps you build that confidence in the public eye. I've been really thinking about this the last decade because, like, why am I not as assertive as I am in my marriage? In my marriage, like, I'm the most assertive guy ever. I tell my wife things I would never say on YouTube, ever, because it's like it's not necessarily controversial. It's just I'm confident. But when I'm talking with my boss or my boss's boss, I feel some need to be polite. And you could say this is a byproduct of working culture or whatever. Sure, sure, sure. But it feels more like some kind of weird shackles put on me when I'm dealing with the public, when I'm dealing with people in general, when I'm making a YouTube video, right? I can't express who I truly am because it's not publicly acceptable, or I'm not able to express my exact uh, opinion about things because it'll be, it'll like alienate people or something. And it doesn't have to be some kind of super outlandish or controversial take. It's just like some kind of weird, publicly acceptable version of yourself that's been hammered into you as just that, as publicly acceptable. So that weird dichotomy of like, how do you express yourself and your exact desires and exactly what you need as a person and still maintain a polite demeanor? It's like the world piles on all of these necessities, all of these communications related parts of communication that you need to hit those specific check marks to do. And finding a way to be as confident as you are, as I am when I'm talking with my wife in a public setting, I think you need some kind of like safety net that you set up such that you're not nervous about expressing every one of your thoughts, needs, or otherwise desires, right? Okay, that was really roundabout, really ranty, but I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. Like, when you're around someone that you trust to the core of your soul, you say things that might not be publicly acceptable, that might not be PC, as you will, like politically correct. You say things that exemplify what exactly you want in life. But when you're in the workplace or you're in public or you're whatever, you're not, there's something that keeps you from being incredibly assertive, something that keeps you from being stalwart in the things that you're saying. And so I'm trying to think of what it would be that I would need to tell my boss, like, no. You know what I mean? Like, you're sitting there, you've got a plate full of tasks that you need to do. And they're like, hey, we want you to work on said project. And you go, I literally don't have the bandwidth to work on that project. Uh, no, I'm not doing that. What would you need to do that? And you could say it's something as simple as like more income, right? Are your investments in a place like you have enough income investments to just not be hired anymore? Like if you got fired, would the money in the bank supply you with what you need to survive? Is that what's necessary to be socially confident? I'm of the mind to say no. Think of these figures in history. Think of Jesus. Think of Alexander the Great. Think of Genghis Khan. Did he need a bank account to be confident? No. What did those people need? Joan of Arc is another example. If you want a female example, I'm all for equality and uh, PC values. I'm not trying to exclude anyone. I'm just making a point. Like, what would these figures from history need to be confident in just talking in public, right? I'm a millennial, right? My generation is known for needing to make a script before they make a phone call. They need to sit down and like plan out what they'll say and plan out how to handle things and like deal with whatever the phone call is going to bring up before you actually make the phone call. But in history, that phone call, at least in the last 100 years, is what gets things done, right? You just sit down, express your needs, communicate, and the problem is solved. And 9 times out of 10, the problem isn't even a problem. You just sit down and talk, and it's all sorted out. We, excuse me, we've built up this idea in our head like a phone call is going to be this horrible thing. Thanks, millennialism. Uh, So I'm wondering, like, what do you need to be socially secure? What do you need to sit through those one-on-ones and just be incredibly confident and charming and stand up for yourself? I don't know. off the top of my head. I don't know what you need to be just who you are alone, who you are when you're talking to your wife, like me. How do you be that person when you're in public? I'm working on that. That's something I've been working on for the last 5 years. I've been married for almost 8 years, but it's something I've noticed in myself that I admire about my wife. My wife is someone who just says what is true. If there's something going on, if there's some thought that she has, she just says it and it works out. Everything she does turns into an amazing outcome. She's so socially forward. There's nothing that holds her back. It's amazing. It's amazing. For another example of what I'm talking about, I think of my dad. My dad has zero social grace. There's zero social etiquette or anything along those lines. He will do and say whatever is on his mind, whatever expresses him best at that time. That is my dad. He's the most genuine person I've ever met. And I admire that. If he was in a job interview or a one-on-one meeting with a manager, or he's dealing with someone in public, he just says what's on his mind. I cannot imagine doing that. I cannot imagine being so socially brave. It's so like, if I said what was on my mind, maybe this channel would blow up. Maybe. But I would definitely alienate some people because I have some pretty radical views in XYZ things, right? So when I look at my wife's courage, my father's courage, and they might not even have courage, they're just doing what they do as a person. I admire that. I wish I was that. I wish I was that person that just said the thing that was so pertinent to the moment, that was so self-assertive, that was so so honest. How do you find that courage in yourself to stand up for yourself in those moments? And part of me goes to that place of financial security. Like, oh, well, no matter what happens, if I'm fired, I'll be okay. Because that's how my brain works. I'm very numbers oriented, I'm very analytical as a person. Sure, but there's more than that. If you have confidence in your skills, right? If you were fired right now, could you find a job in the next 20 minutes? In the next month? In the next 6 months? Do you have the savings to back yourself up while you find a new job? And see, I even go to that place of like, do you have the savings to back yourself up while you find a new job? Do you see? Do you see the difference? I'm like an accountant, and my wife is like Alexander the Great. My dad is like Julius Caesar. They're these amazing people who just express themselves in the moment. And I'm over here like, well, I can't say those things because they would be socially unacceptable or they would be rude in some way. When in actuality, it wouldn't be rude, it would just be expressing what's on your mind and everything would be sorted out just fine. You're not coming out and saying things like, oh, insert whatever controversial thing here. You're coming out and saying like, I don't have the bandwidth to work on a project. You see what I mean? So whatever that is, whatever social grace that is that I have that makes me want to be publicly acceptable in a work environment or in public like this, secretly I despise it and wish I was more like my wife or my dad. Who just like, it's a non-smoking area and my dad lights up a cigarette. He's like, I just wanted a cigarette. It makes me laugh every time because there's the epitome of my father. He's just like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm just doing my thing. I am who I am, and forget anyone else who ever interacted with him. Yeah, Is that a weakness of mine? Does it make me weak to try to make things easy for other people to interact with? Is it weak of me to try to find some kind of social cohesion in a work setting, in public, but also to not stand up for myself in an assertive manner in those different regards? Is that weakness or is that diplomacy? Questions for another time, I guess. Good luck on your journey as you answer these same questions. I will put out some more information on it at a later date. Take care of yourself.